Happy Wednesday, everybody. Welcome to NHL Tonight First Shift here with Bruce Boudreau. I'm Jameson Coyle. Are you sick of me yet? It worked like 72 straight days. Every time you're on, I'm like following behind you. Like,
well, I'm the lucky one in this situation.
I don't know about that.
So, no, it's good.
Yeah.
It's good. It's been great. You've been a great teacher.
Teacher? You teach me?
No, but you lead into everything. It's good. We're just hoping we do EJ justice now that he's down in Florida.
What a gig he's got.
Geez.
Especially down there, but I love this show too. You rip off the ties and you just kind of talk shop for 60 minutes. So what could be better?
And no, nothing could be better. This is fun right now.
Great time of the year. I think officially spring is tomorrow, right? So we'll get out of the winter. No more snow, hopefully, in the forecast. You've got NHL regular season winding down. We're under a month to go until the Stanley Cup playoffs, the best in all four major sports. And the NCAA tournament, you got hoops starting up. You got the NCAA hockey tournament coming up as well. So what could be better than this time of year?
This time of year is amazing. You just finished the Players' Championship in golf. You know, the Masters is coming up in a few weeks. You've got playoffs and everything. You got baseball starting. And hockey's one every day where there's more than even today there's 2 games. They have meanings to it.
Yes.
But most every night now in hockey, when there's 8 to 10 games, the standings change like every day and
every night.
So everything has meaning. And if it's your home team or your favorite team, boy, you're watching them like with bated breath. You're either living with them or dying with them on a nightly basis.
Yeah.
We'll you died long ago.
Thank you for that. Well, we do have other things to look forward to, like you mentioned, and we have the honor today of looking ahead to the Hobey Baker Award given out to the top collegiate hockey player in the NCAA. And today we're going to reveal the top 10 finalists for this year's Hobey Baker Award. Take it away, Lauren Gardner.
Zeev Buium, defenseman, University of Denver. Buium is just one of 2 defensemen to be named a top 10 finalist for the 2025 Hobey Baker Award. Now, in his second year at the University of Denver, Buium led all NCAA Blue Liners in assists during the regular season. Jack Devine, forward, University of Denver. This is Devine's second straight year as a top 10 finalist. In his senior season, he was the NCHC scoring champion, delivering back-to-back seasons with 50-plus points, and led all NCAA skaters in points and assists during the regular season. Aiden Fink, forward, Penn State University. In his sophomore year, Fink finished second in the nation in points during the regular season. The Calgary native was a finalist for the Big Ten Player of the Year, the first Nittany Lion nominated since 2020, and is PSU's all-time leader in power play goals. Matt Godowski, defenseman, Army West Point. Godowski, the AHA Defenseman of the Year, is one of just 2 D-men in this year's top 10. The sophomore led all NCAA Blue Liners in goals during the regular season and set a program record for most points in a single season since Army joined the AHA in 2003. Isaac Howard, forward, Michigan State University. Howard was named the Big Ten Player of the Year after tripling his goal total from last season. The junior was a conference scoring champion with 16 goals and 17 assists in 24 Big Ten contests. Ryan Leonard, forward, Boston College. First in the nation with 29 goals during the regular season, Leonard was named Player of the Year in Hockey East. The Amherst, Massachusetts native led his conference in points, game-winning goals, and shots. Ayrton Martino, forward, Clarkson University. The Golden Knights senior has almost as many goals this year as he did in his first 3 seasons combined. A unanimous choice as first-team All-ECAC, Martino led the conference in goals during the regular season. Liam McClinsky, forward, Holy Cross. This is McClinsky's second straight year as a top 10 finalist. He was named first team all-conference after leading the AHA in scoring in the regular season and now ranks second in career goals at Holy Cross since the Crusaders moved to D1 in 1998. Jimmy Snuggerud, forward, University of Minnesota. Just the 3rd player in program history to score at least 20 goals in each of his first 3 seasons, Snuggerud was a finalist for the Big Ten Player of the Year. He led the conference in goals and finished second in points for the regular season. Alex Tracy, goaltender, Minnesota State University. The only goaltender amongst the finalists, Tracy led all NCAA netminders in goals against average in the regular season. Named Player of the Year in the CCHA, he led the league in goals against average, save percentage, and shutouts.
And those are your top 10 finalists for this year's Hobey Baker Award. The Hobey Baker will be handed out live right here on the NHL Network coming up Friday, April 11th at 6 p.m. Eastern Time from the NCAA Championships.
And that's an impressive list of players.
Yes, absolutely.
Right there. And you know what? I look at these 10 guys, and you always sit there. Okay, I want to look a year from now on what's happened to these guys. And like, I mean, some of them might be in the NHL. One I think for sure will be in the NHL is Ryan Leonard.
Ryan Leonard, definitely. We saw Zeev Buium, kind of his coming out party last year in the national championship game, and then wins World Junior Gold with Ryan Leonard. A lot of these guys, you know, there's some crossover when they play internationally and whatnot, but yeah, Ryan Leonard, what a calendar year for him, right? Back-to-back World Junior Golds. He was the captain of that team. Made it to the NCAA championship final last year, lost to Zeev Buium, the Denver Pioneers, but BC with a great chance to get back there and maybe take home the trophy this time around, and then everybody kind of assumes that he'll jump right into the Stanley Cup playoffs and join the first-place Washington Capitals. What do you know?
The rich get richer, and I mean, I think one of the reasons that the Caps didn't go out and make a lot of moves at the trade deadline was because they're expecting Ryan Leonard to come in and play for them when his season is over. And it's tough. It's been done before. Cale Makar came right into and was very impressive right at the beginning. And I mean, Ryan Leonard, it might be a little tougher as a forward rather than a defenseman, but I think he's going to come in and the Caps have got a lot of faith in him, and they really believe in him, and I think they've done an awful lot of good scouting lately, so they would know a lot better than I.
Yeah, not that the Caps need any help at this point, because they are now officially the top team in the NHL when it comes to points percentage, passing the Winnipeg Jets with their win last night, 4-1 over the Red Wings, who the Red Wings needed to win that one. They didn't, but the Caps keep rolling. They have the best record, like I mentioned, in the NHL. Bruce, you are around this team. You work for this team still, covering them as a broadcaster and whatnot. What impresses you the most with what Washington has done this season?
Well, you know what? It's because they don't have bad games. I mean, if you look at them, I mean, we just talked about when we were talking about Toronto about being 4 lines deep, and that these guys are 4 lines deep, and if one line's not going, another line is. They're 6D deep. Their goaltending is great. They've been touchwood, they haven't had any injuries. I think they've used the same 6 defensemen this whole calendar year so far. So, I mean, they've got an awful lot of things going, but they play the same way. And this is hats off to Spencer. Yeah. I mean, they play the same way every game. So, I mean, I think we mentioned it last night. It's 1-1. The Caps are going to win this game.
You called it.
Because they just keep playing and grinding and grinding. And when you make a mistake, they're there to capitalize on it. So it's a team. If you want to beat the Capitals, I think you got to get to them early, and you cannot let up for an instant. I think they're a really solid contender for the Stanley Cup.
And there's so many great storylines with and surrounding this team right now. With how well the team's playing. Obviously, we have Alex Ovechkin trying to chase down .894. You've got the great net mining story there with Logan Thompson. But how about Tom Wilson? Scores 30 goals for the first time in his career. He's the 4th player in NHL history, you got it right here, to score 30 goals while playing a minimum of 750 games before doing so. And look at some of the names on this list. But what does that tell you about Tom Wilson and maybe the trajectory that he's taken in his NHL career?
Well, I mean, he's obviously came up with he was pretty rambunctious.
Yeah.
And would do a lot of little things that weren't the smartest way.
You could say it. Stupid things
He did stupid things, but he's certainly gained the attention of the rest of the league.
Yeah.
But now he's gotten smarter and matured. And like, to me, he reminds me of Brendan Shanahan right now. Like, I mean, maybe not the total goal scorer that Brendan was, but Brendan's was a physical player. And I mean, and Tom Wilson is as physical as you get. You watch the other night, night somebody challenged him and he said, okay, listen, it's time I fought again, and he did a really good job. But to score 30 and to be the 6'4" and be on that line with Alex, who's big, and their forechecking ability is amazing, yet he still kills penalties all the time too. I think he's had a great career. The Caps have done a great job of bringing him along.
Yeah.
And you know, he started as an 18-year-old tough guy, and the hardest thing in the league is to be 18 years old and all you're used to fighting all the time. So hats off to the Caps and what they've done for Tom Wilson, and hats off to Tom for staying with it and becoming the complete player that he's become.
I love the comparison to Brendan Shanahan, but it feels like a different time and different style of play that we have in the NHL right now.
Maybe more of a Rick Tocchet, maybe, almost, you know? I mean,
I get where
that
you're going
kind
with
of
that,
guy.
but is there anybody like Tom Wilson right now? There aren't many Tom Wilsons in the NHL.
Every team wants one.
Right.
And
what makes him so valuable?
Well, because
What does he have that other teams and players don't have?
Well, he's got the physicality plus the goal-scoring touch.
He can play top line, fourth line, right?
Yeah, but I mean, he's a top-line player. But I mean, you can put him in any situation. When you're one of the better penalty killers, you play front net on the power play or the bumper position. You play in the last minute of every game, and you're doing everything, and you're a leader on the team. I mean, there's every team in the league wants Tom Wilson, and there's not a lot of them out there.
Incredible stuff. All right, so the Caps, the top team in the NHL, and the top team obviously in the East. But how about the team that just snuck into the Eastern Conference playoff picture last night, Montreal? We talked last night, is there a better city right now to be walking around in if you're a player in the NHL than if you're a Canadian walking around in the city of Montreal with what this team is doing?
If I was in Montreal today, I'd just walk up and down the street so everybody could say how great we are. I mean, you know what, I was thinking about this today, because I don't know basketball that well, and I don't know other sports, but when you go to Montreal and you play at a time where they're coming on like they are, I mean, that town and that arena has got the best vibes of any arena in the league.
It's a religious experience.
Absolutely, and there's 21,000 people that sits in there, and I mean, it's a crazy feeling. Montreal's doing it with comebacks, you know, scoring 4 goals or 5 goals in a period, and I mean, they just never say die. Marty's gotten them believing that they're not only can win, and if they end up winning and have to play a Canadian team in the first round, it's all up for grabs.
Yeah.
I mean, I wouldn't put anything by that team.
You said it earlier, right off the top of the show, though. You said every single night you watch these games, and literally the standings can change just like that. So Montreal gets in last night with the Rangers loss and the Habs winning that game over Ottawa. So they're in right now. How do you see that second wildcard spot shaking out? Does Montreal have what it takes to stay there in wildcard spot 2, or is it going to be the Rangers, the Islanders, Columbus, Detroit? I mean,
well, I mean,
it
could still be anybody, but I mean,
do you believe in Montreal?
I don't believe. You know what I've always said? This is not their year. I think they're going to be pushing it right to game 82, and game 82 it might come down to. But I mean, either way, it's going to be a great year, and they're going to be a really good team next year. They got a lot of money for free agency and all that. That being said, I've always said the Rangers are going to be there, but after last night's game, I do not know.
Are you changing your pick right now?
Well, I'm changing it. I don't know how
bad was that performance?
They were so bad last night. I got a couple junior teams that I wouldn't have minded playing against them last night.
So for the casual fan watching right now, you look at the box score and you say, all right, the Rangers lost 2-1. That's not so bad. What made last night so bad?
Well, first of all, it was a back-to-back for Calgary. They had to travel, go through immigration.
They got waxed
the night before in Toronto. They have not been good of the last 12 or 13 games. The Rangers are sitting home rested in a game they have to win. And they end up with 13 shots on goal, and 4 of them were in the last 5 minutes. There was no pushback. There was no. I mean, I was wondering where their effort was, and if it wasn't for Shesterkin, because Calgary had 35 plus shots on goal, 35-13.
Right.
When you're the away team, it's embarrassing. And I mean, but. Every time I say they're out, they pull me back in. But I mean, after last night's game, I can't see them making it if that's their effort. But I still think they're gonna.
Yeah. In and around it, and a big one coming up tomorrow night against Toronto.
Again, another back-to-back.
Stay tuned.
And Toronto tonight, to me, is going to be a very emotional game, beating that kind of team. And so we'll see what the Rangers do tomorrow.
All right, we're going to calm you down with some much better weather down there in Florida. We're going to head down to Florida for the final day of the GM meetings. EJ sat
There
down
he
with
is.
the Commissioner.
There he
That's
is. He's building the sandcastle
Well, he sat down with
right down there.
All right, we're back with EJ and the Commissioner. We'll get them off the sand and talk and shop next.
Commissioner, another GM's meetings. There's been, over the years, we've had a lot of different meetings. There's some that are more contentious or there's more bigger picture issues. How would you characterize what happened over the last couple of days?
I don't remember any of the contentious ones. I thought we had 3 days of really good meetings. Focusing on the game, there are no rule changes. I think that reflects the fact that the managers who focus on the game as intently as they do are really comfortable, pleased with the way the game is being played. And the video exercise we did on goaltender interference was terrific, because what it demonstrates is that the managers overwhelmingly think hockey operations is getting it right. It's clear it's a judgment call, because even they don't always agree on some of the calls. And in the final analysis, there is consistency, and people can be comfortable with the process.
I thought it was interesting earlier in the week when you guys allowed the media to come in, and Coley Campbell and the Hockey Apps groups gave kind of a mini description of what has gone on, at least on Monday. And they talked about kind of educating some of the younger managers, because we have had turnover in that area, and I think it's important for those managers to kind of understand where the roots of some of these decisions are.
Well, we have a great history and traditions of managers being the eyes, the ears, the heart of the game, and it's, as caretakers, they take it very seriously. And I think it's these meetings, when the managers get together for 3 days, their interaction helps to continue that great tradition and to make sure there's continuity in the game.
So in these meetings, you talk about a lot of different things. There are different presentations. I know, listening to some of your comments earlier, I guess part of it is getting ready for the CBA negotiations. What can you tell fans about where we're headed with that?
Well, we'll begin the process, the discussion shortly with the Players Association. And I'm hopeful that we can do this quickly, quietly, and smoothly. Obviously, I'm not going to get into the substance of the things we're going to discuss, but I think on both sides of the ledger, there's a real comfort level with the game and how the game is growing off the ice, as well as how great it is on the ice.
Well, you guys worked together on the Four Nations tournament, which went terrific.
It was good.
Does that help in kind of getting together and feeling that commonality and feeling comfortable with one another as you look forward to making, you have to make some hard decisions?
Whether it's Four Nations or 95,000 people at an outdoor game in Columbus, what I think is clear is when we're working together, really good things can happen.
Yeah, and you have to be thrilled with the Four Nations face-off and all
great.
the things that went into that. I mean, what's your takeaway from that? I mean, it seemed like it was only positives.
It elevated the game. I mean, people who may not have been hockey fans or even sports fans tuned in, and some of them will be back. And I think it's all part of growing the game, and as importantly, showing how great our game is and how great our athletes are.
Was it fun for you turning on the different sports channels and different radios and hearing it was a plethora of hockey talk, right?
It was everywhere all the time. It's kind of like it was for Game 7 in the Stanley Cup final between Edmonton and Florida. I love it when it's like that, and I think our game deserves that attention on an ongoing basis.
You got the Olympics coming up next year at this time. I guess there's still some loose ends that have to be tied up in terms of that, getting ready for that.
Well, we're in continuous discussions with the International Ice Hockey Federation, and they may have some concerns that have to be worked out. Obviously, the IOC is involved. None of these things are as simple as turning on a light switch, but I think we're charting the right course, and we're excited about a regular schedule of Olympics, World Cups. I think that's going to be great for the game.
One of the big things that happened over the last year that'll impact the NHL is what the NCAA decided to do with the eligibility rules for college players that could go and then play junior after they've played, or play college after they've played in junior. that will affect how the clubs operate in terms of drafting and developing players. Is that something you guys have to kind of reassess now moving forward?
We've got to focus on it, and we have to focus on it with the Players Association. We have a series of rules in effect, and I suppose they could be continued, but I think it's better for us to collectively look at how the path to the NHL will develop under these new set of NCAA rules, and then determine whether or not changes in what we currently have would be appropriate. I think players and the clubs need and want predictability going forward, and that's something we'll strive towards.
Is that going to be is it a tricky thing to handle because you've had that rule in place for a long time?
Well, but the world changes,
right?
And you have to adapt.
Yeah, no question about that. You mentioned the outdoor game in Columbus with 95,000 people there. Where do you feel we're at with the outdoor games? I mean, it seems like they're always really well received in the markets. There's no question about that.
They're great. I mean, we've done 43 outdoor games. They've all been successful. They've all gotten bigger and better. And, our fans love our big events. And so we view it as part of our goal, objective, and responsibility is to keep finding great ways to connect with our fans. And when we do, our fans react incredibly.
And how about the ones down here in Florida next year in Tampa? And
well, there are people who have suggested that now we've lost our minds. And 2 outdoor games in Florida in a 1-month period. Obviously, with the experience we've had with our ice-making crews, what a hockey operations does, we think we can do this and make it a huge success. And as we've demonstrated with 4 Nations and Stadium Series in Columbus, we're happy to push the limits. And we're excited about these games. We think they're going to be great.
Yeah, your events team does a great job with all the different things they put on, which brings me to the draft, because it's going to be different this year. It's going to be in Los Angeles, but the teams will not be all there. They'll have a representative there. Give the fans an idea of what to expect this year at the draft, because it will be a different look.
The prospects will be with us, and instead of teams interacting on the floor, they'll be doing it behind the scenes in technology. They'll be in their home markets. The prospects will all be with us, and I'll be the one calling them out unless we bring in some celebrity or guests to make some of the announcements. It'll be a good event. It'll be well done. It'll look more like what the NFL and the NBA do. But what's interesting already, some of the managers have said, well, what if we decide after we do this we like the old format better? And we said, then you asked us to put it to a vote for this year. We did. It was 26-6. Let's try the decentralized draft. We said, fine, we'll execute it. And if after this event they want to revisit, then we'll revisit it.
Would you be against having it come back again? I think you like the old format.
I like the old format.
Yeah.
I like the interaction on the floor.
Yeah.
I like the personal touch of each club making their own announcement. But this is one of those things where we can easily defer to the club and the clubs and execute it the way we think is necessary under the circumstances. We can be completely adaptable.
Yeah, you give it a try.
That's right.
If it doesn't like it as much, you go back to the older format.
Exactly.
We got the playoffs coming up. You must be excited about all the parity in the league, and the races are back and forth. I know you don't want to change the playoff format at all. You like the way it's working.
I think it's great.
It is working well. There's no question about that.
I mean, we got a bunch of teams who feel like they're already in the playoffs.
Yeah.
The races are going to go down to the wire. They're exciting. They're unpredictable. They're changing game by game, day by day. That's what I think is important to deliver to your fans.
Yeah, it's going to be a crazy race to the end of the season, and certainly the playoffs. We're looking forward to that. Thanks so much for the time today. We really appreciate it. As always, enjoy a little sunshine here if you can, and you'll be busy.
Great to be with you. I appreciate all you do.
All right, thanks. The Commissioner of the National Hockey League, Gary Bettman.
From live play-by-play to your favorite game day anthems and the biggest sports podcasts in the world, the iHeartRadio app lets you take it all with you wherever you go. Download the free iHeartRadio app today.
Welcome back. Looking ahead to I won't say loaded Wednesday slate, but quality over quantity, Bruce. Just 2 games on tap. You've got 2 really good ones. The early one, the Avs and the Maple Leafs, that one 7 o'clock Eastern time on TNT. And the late one tonight also on TNT. The Kraken on the road in St. Paul to take on the Minnesota Wild. Let's start with the early game. The Avs and the Leafs, these 2 teams met almost 2 weeks ago in Denver. It was a rout, 7-4 in favor of the Avalanche. If you're Toronto, what kind of measuring stick is this rematch, so to speak, tonight in TO?
Well, they're as good as there is in the league, I think, when they play their best game. The big difference with Colorado is they're one team at home, and then they're a completely different team on the road. So it's going to be interesting to see how they play tonight on the road, where I think they're 3-4-3 in their last 10, rather than when they play at home, and they're almost unbeatable at home. So it should be a great game. When you've got McKinnon coming back to Canada and playing, and it's they get that all across Canada, that Leaf game. So I mean, and with the Leafs especially having a really strong game the last game where they were dipping a little bit, right, it should make for a really good test tonight.
You know better than anybody up there in Toronto, it's never about the regular season with this team anymore. It's what happens come second week of April, the postseason. Does this team look or feel any different than the last couple of seasons we've seen up in Toronto?
Well, you know what? They do and they don't, in that the first 40 games, I thought defensively they were so much better than they had been previously. But they've really been struggling defensively, in my mind, right now, and to keeping goals down, which is what Craig Berube wants to do. He doesn't want an all-offensive game. I think this game might have helped that a couple of the guys got out of slumps and everything else, and Matthews scored 2, and they can get back to playing their game. But they play a different style right now, and they think that's going to be the way that's going to win in the playoffs. I'm still struggling to think that it is.
All right, time will tell on that front, and what seed they get in that playoffs, time will tell on that front as well. It's that time of the week to enter the Cool Cave. So we welcome in our good friend Steve Kouleas of SiriusXM NHL Network up there. Cools, you're in and around the Toronto area, so you know as well as anybody up there the vibe right now. What concerns, if any, do you have for this team heading into the playoffs this year?
Well, Jameson, good to see you again. Saw you in Boston. Bruce, long time no chat. Well, there's a lot of concerns. How long do we have? I mean, they've had power play issues, they've had scoring issues, they've had goaltending issues, and they've had grit issues in playoffs past. So they have a different coach. Bruce just alluded to the different system, more of man-on-man with a shadow. I'm actually not worried about the goaltending. This is the best defense they've ever had as a group in the Matthews administration. So let's say the top 2 lines do score in the playoffs. What are they going to get, gentlemen, from the bottom 6? This isn't Pat Burns' bottom 6 or Pat Quinn's bottom 6, where you've got players like Nieuwendyk and Roberts and Tucker and Travis Green. What is McMahon, Domi, Robertson? Lawton just got there. Lorentz has been there longer because Jarnkrok's been hurt all year. These 3 guys are introducing themselves to each other as they're going out there. And you talked about Colorado. Leafs played Colorado and lost. Played Vegas and lost. Played Florida and lost. Played Ottawa and lost. Those are good teams. They're either elite teams or teams that are playing very well. In the playoffs, you only play elite teams. Maybe, Bruce, they've got their slump out of the way now, but they need to pick up a lot of aspects of their game and show some identity. Right now, it feels like nothing's changed, Mr. Boudreau.
Well, you know what? I don't disagree with you, because when I looked at the lineup that you ported up there, the biggest thing that I noticed, in playoffs, you need 4 lines to win. And with the Leafs there, I've only got faith in 2 lines. And, I mean, if you don't have all 4 lines going, and, I mean, everybody having the role, that 3rd line has got to score and check, that 4th line has got to check and bring energy. If they don't have that, they're not going to have success. And right now it looks offensively like, I mean, pretty well. I mean, the same kind of lineup with different names that they've had the last 4 or 5 years. But I agree with you, their defense is better, and, I mean, their defense is going to make the goaltending better, even though the goaltending hasn't been that great since Christmas. I mean, they're starting to, I think before last game, they were averaging 3.8 goals against in the previous 10 games. So that's got to, I think, improve just a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, this group, I mean, I can see Riley moving down. I mean, he's had defensive issues all season. He has not adapted well to the system. When you're supposed to be a power play guy and an offensive defenseman, and they go with 5 forwards on the power play, and you're the defenseman who's not on the power play, That's been a storyline in Toronto for sure. The group is better. It's going to be showtime if they're playing a Florida, if they win the division and get Ottawa or perhaps Montreal, Rangers, who knows, or if they get Tampa. Now, they played Tampa really, really well. The only playoff series they've won since the Pats have coached them was against Tampa. They seem to have Vasilevsky's number as of late. And maybe because of the skill, the Leafs don't handle the forecheck as well. Who forechecks? Teams like, well, Eller's the third line in Washington. Lundell's the third line in Florida. They added Gord and Paul and figuring out Bjorkstrand as the third line in Tampa Bay. So it's a work in progress. It's going to be very interesting. There's going to be a lot of really good teams in both conferences out after the first round. If it happens again, in Toronto, after all these years again, who knows what happens with Marner and company. But there's angst, Jameson. You want to know the feel? There's angst among the natives here.
All right. There's always angst up there among the natives, both regular season and playoffs. We'll see how that plays out in a couple of weeks. The late game tonight, Seattle Kraken taking on the Minnesota Wild. Seattle, their playoff picture is, getting bleaker and bleaker as these days progress. But they're coming off a win over Chicago last night. And if you're looking towards the future, Shane Wright, 2 more goals. He's up to 17 now on the season. Cooley, what do you make of Shane Wright and his progression in the National Hockey League? They kept him down in the AHL for quite some time, let him marinate down there, and it seems like it's paying dividends now because he seems to start to have a better feel for what it's like in the NHL right now.
You nailed it, Jameson. You nailed it. Remember, he just turned 21, folks. Nobody perhaps was more affected coming out of the OHL because of COVID and the lost time than Shane Wright. So just 21. Last night was career game 82. Think about that. That's now a full season. He scored twice, 22 goals and 47 points as a 21-year-old in a full year. And look, great graphic again. Only 13 minutes a night. And overall this season and his career, he's a plus player on a team that, let's be honest, isn't exactly a Stanley Cup contender. He's too good to be a fourth liner. I don't know if he'll be a true number 1 line center, slow playing it like a Nick Suzuki. At worst, he's a 3, and he could end up being a 2. Think about it. Just turned 21 in January. Those numbers say a lot about the slow play Bruce development. Green tomato turning red. We're watching this guy turn red right in front of our eyes. Bravo, Seattle. They handled it perfectly.
Fried green tomatoes are pretty good sometimes.
That's a great,
Just
great
saying.
one. Hey, you know what? The biggest thing I see with Shane is maturity. When you could tell from the day one of the draft, like I didn't think he handled the draft very well. And listen, I watched him in the finals against the Hershey Bears the last 2 years. And I mean, he looked like he'd be doing some sulking in the playoffs, but now he's starting to mature and his talent is coming out. Instead of, hanging his head and saying, woe is me, he's playing the game. And when he plays the game, he's really good. And like you said, those numbers don't lie. There's an awful lot of 21-year-olds that would like to have 22 goals after 82 games. So I think we've just hit the tip of the iceberg with him, but I think it's all about his maturity from junior, from the disappointment of the draft, to being in the American League, to being in the NHL and being a regular. And he didn't start out on a first line or a second line. He went right to the fourth line, and his minutes were really limited. And I agree with you. Seattle's done it right. They've showed him the way, and now it's up to him to take it and run with it.
Yeah, and Bruce, the American Hockey League never hurt anybody. And as a prodigy, as a Don Mills Flyer, as a GTHL superstar, I was in Oshawa when he scored his first goal against the Generals, and they had a good team. He was with Kingston. He was 15. He was 15, and Craig Button said, there's Shane Wright, look at this. And we all had him pegged, and then he had issues. He wasn't as powerful as we thought he should be at the U18s and at the World Juniors. Still good. Still won, but not what we thought. And now we're starting to see it. He's not 27. He's only 21. Montreal still did well in that draft class. Juraj Slafkovsky and Lane Hudson. So it's okay. There's a lot of good. Logan Cooley. There's a lot of good players there. Shane will be among them. 13 minutes. Imagine if that number grows, Bruce, right to 16, 17, then 18. Then the other numbers will come into play as well. But the AHL helped.
Everybody can win, right? at a draft.
There's one thing I wanted to tell you about that. You said the AHL never hurts you. Well, unless you play 17 years there, then you're really not getting out of the AHL. I can tell you that by experience. But go ahead.
We'll go back to the NHL.
Let's go back to the NHL.
Fans in Carolina may be hurting a little bit over what transpired the last month or so. They get Mikko Rantanen. That didn't quite work out so well. So now they have a new set of newcomers. And Cools, it seems to be working out quite well. This team's on a 7-game winning streak. They're off tonight. They'll be on the road in San Jose tomorrow night trying to make it 8 straight. But now that all the drama has seemed to pass this organization by, what do you think the future holds in the short term here down in Raleigh for the Hurricanes?
Well, and I don't know how you feel about this, Jameson or Bruce. I would just act like Rantanen was never there. This 7-game win streak, he was in 3 of the games, and then Stankoven and Jankowski have been there for 4. Now, Jankowski scored 4 goals all year in Nashville, and he's got 4 in Carolina. He's not a goal scorer. He's a fourth-line center. That's great. Stankoven's got 1-1-2 in the 2 games. Hall scored in back-to-back games. And he must produce on the second line. Remember, they got the Svechnikov injury there, so you'd probably take Jost out and move Roslovic down. He plays all positions anyway. But, this is still a very good group. And they're destined to finish second, play New Jersey, and open up at home. Why is that important? They're 27-7-1 at home this year. They got the best home record in the NHL, and we've seen them in the playoffs before win every game at home almost, and then struggle on the road. They're still very, very good. There's the numbers there on where they're going to finish. Home ice, I think, is critical for them. I throw it back at you and say I think they're really good. If Hall doesn't produce, if Kotkaniemi doesn't produce, they put a lot of pressure on Stahl in the third line. The question is, Mr. Boudreau, who starts in net? Kochetkov or Freddie, my friend?
It's a good question, and I had Freddie his first 5 years in Anaheim, and I remember the one year that they John Gibson started over him, and it didn't work out the first 2 games, and I went to Freddie, and he was unbelievable for 3 games. And I think this is going to be one of those situations where they're going to end up using both goalies. And I mean, because neither one of them, can stay healthy for a long time, but neither one of them stays hot for a long time if you go with the one goalie. So, I mean, I don't think it's going to be a switch of game to game, but I think 2 or 3 games, and then somebody's going to come in for a game or 2. I think Fred needs rest. He has a hard time playing consecutive games over and over again, but I think he's going to start. He's the veteran, and when he's on, he's really good.
How hard would that be to manage, though, in a 7-game series and hopefully multiple 7-game series and whatnot, just as a coach to try and have the feel for who's going and who's not, or who maybe had one off night?
It's a good guess. When you're a coach, you got to have the feel, and you got. But nobody knows the players better than the coach. Okay, I don't care. You can say the GM. No, the coach is with the players every day, and he knows when he's struggling a bit, when in practice, when the puck is not hitting him right, when it's going wrong. He can see it in the game, and then he can make the moves. And I think Rod is really good at reading his team, and I think he will know when Freddie starts. If after game 2 he's starting to, it looks like he's gonna, go the other way. I don't think he'll hesitate to make a move, even if they're 2-0 in the playoffs. I think at this stage, Carolina is built to win. They want to win now, and I think they'll do everything they can. It doesn't matter who plays, who doesn't play. They're playing to win right from now.
Who would you start game 1, Cools?
I think I would go to Freddie. And Bruce's analogy of using both. I mean, think about it. They're playing the Devils. The best of the 4 goalies right now is Jake Allen. Jake Allen's ranked, 5th of 95 on Money Puck, goals saved above expected, how well he's played. I'm not saying he's going to start. They brought Markstrom in for a reason, but they got no Hughes, no Hamilton. These are 2 wounded antelopes playing each other. It's a very winnable series, Jameson, for either one. They're not playing Washington. They're not playing a healthy Florida team or Tampa that can wow you. So it'll be very interesting. And remember, when you win a round, right, guys, you justify your season. So I have Carolina, because of the no Hughes, no Hamilton, as my favorite going in. And I think Bruce is right. I think we will see both Carolina goalies. They actually probably can't make a bad decision.
All right, interesting. We'll wait on that front. Before we let you go, you get the last word. Prediction, or what do you got? What's on tap for today?
Well, first of all, guys, thanks for having me. Keep up the great work. I really feel good. You mentioned it earlier, Bruce. Nate McKinnon scores a Laboo in Toronto tonight on TNT Dynamite.
There he is. Steve Cooley is from the Cool's Cave.
I'm just glad we don't have that on the radio when we're working together.
You will next time. The discussion room next time. Cool's always a pleasure. We'll chat with you next week, okay? Take care.
Thank you.
All right, Steve Kouleas, our good friend here on NHL Network. When we come back, doesn't that look lovely? That's where EJ and
You
Dan
see
Rosen
him?
have been.
Do you see him there?
No. Looking for EJ walking around in his Speedo. Don't quite see it.
No.
Maybe nobody wants to see it. We'll check in with him next.
Just over 2 minutes in, here's Rattray streaking toward the net, tries to make it move, and she scores! Jamie Lee Rattray with her first point of the season, and it's a big one as it opens the scoring for the Fleet.
Such a gorgeous goal. A turnover in the neutral zone leads to this play. And notice her patience. Notice her puck movement as she holds, waits, forces the goaltender to bite on her. And she's so good at this. Huge goal for the Boston Fleet.
There is another look at South Florida, the site of this year's GM meetings. EJ and Dan Rosen have been our boots on the ground the last couple of days and recap some of the big ticket items that have been discussed.
EJ Radick and Dan Rosen, day 3 of the GM meetings here in Manalapan, Florida, wrapping up. And I guess the headline, Dan, is no rule changes coming out of this meeting.
Yeah, no rule changes. That's a good thing.
Yeah.
It means the general managers believe the game is in a good place, which it is. We see the parity. We see all things going on in the playoff races. There was a lot of talk of goalie interference. The GMs are in line with what the rulings are in the Situation Room in Toronto for that overwhelming majority. They're not unanimously, but in line, but there's an overwhelming majority.
Compass is pointed in the right
and
direction.
those are subjective calls, so you're not going to get a unanimous on that. But things are good. No rule changes, and it continues on into the playoff race.
Yeah, and the races are crazy right now. Now, at these meetings, they talk about a number of different topics, and one of them was the upcoming CBA talks that are going to take place between the NHL and the NHLPA. The commissioner indicated early April they will start. I don't know. He didn't want to be pinned down on terms formal, informal, but the bottom line is they've probably been talking a little bit already, and they will talk more in earnest, let's say, at the beginning of April.
Yeah, I think this is when they start really exchanging information and they start exchanging proposals of what they want. April 1st was the date that he mentioned, so that's the first meeting, if you will, to begin these discussions. And Bill Daly, the deputy commissioner, said he's got a list of tens of pages of things that the owners may want, the GMs may want, other parties involved may want, and then you bring that, and that begins the negotiation. But Gary Bettman did say, and with his relationship with the PA, with Marty Walsh, who runs the PA, the executive director, casually before these meetings, they do seem to be very much in line for what on the same page. Certainly, the players will want some things, and the league will want some things, and that's why you have this. But they're in line with a lot of things.
Yeah, and coming out of the Four Nations face-off, the league and the PA worked together on that. It went so well, and I do think the relationship between Bettman and Walsh, it's important because over the years, it hasn't always been a great relationship between the two sides. I think this has been as good as it's gotten in the last 30 years or so. So that will begin soon. And also the draft is something that, you know, we talk about it. It'll be here before you know it, and it'll be a different look draft this year in L.A. at the Peacock Theater with only the players being there, not all the management people being there.
Right. This is going to be a full-on show. This is an L.A. show. The players will be there. One of the cool things Steve Mayer was telling us is that, so normally a player will get drafted, he'll go up on stage, he'll then go down to the tables and he'll meet the GM, the coaches, the scouts, and everybody. So they can't do that there.
Yeah.
But what they're going to do, they're going to walk into a room that's going to be have a 360 camera, and it's going to be a virtual, and then he's going to meet the teams that way, which will have probably a really cool look to it as well as they work on the tech of that. So it's going to be very technologically advanced in that way. And the other thing about it is Gary Bettman will make the first pick.
Yes.
But then he wants the teams to be involved in this and have celebrities or former legendary players to come up on stage and make the pick. Celine Dion did it, right?
Yep.
For the Montreal Canadiens at the Sphere, and they want that. So who's coming out next? Who's it going to be?
Yeah.
Is it going to be Justin Bieber making the pick for the Leafs, John Hamm for the Blues, Will Ferrell for the Kings?
Yep.
What celebrities are going to be there? What former players? So it's going to be a real show to this.
Yeah, no question about that. And Steve Mayer also mentioned the fact that the Quarter Century team has been invited, and that will be announced soon. Those are some pretty big hitters as well, so you could have some great former players maybe announcing picks for the teams that they're most associated with. But it's been an interesting 3 days here. Always get a lot of information. Dan, thanks for all the hard work. You've been writing stories for .com. You're jumping in with us, so we appreciate it.
This was a lot of fun. Always good. Can't beat it.
Yeah, it's beautiful out here, and he got in some good swims.
I
I'll
did
tell you.
not.
I could not believe what a good swimmer Dan Rosen is. All right, that's it from Florida. Back to you in the studio.
Dan Rosen, impressive swimmer. He learns something new every day.
I'm not buying it.
No. How many rounds of golf do you think Ige snuck in down there on his
saying
trip,
4.
his work trip?
I'm saying 4.
4? Minimum.
Yeah, like, I mean, he'll be getting up. He'll get up at 6 in the morning and get that round done by 10. Get back in then and ready to talk to people.
Well, he did a great job down there. We always appreciate Ige heading to the GM meetings and passing along any information that comes out of those meetings. And sounds like no big changes this year. So the league and the game in a very good place.
If there's no big changes, that means everything's going good.
That's right.
So I mean, if it ain't broke, don't fix it, right?
I like it.
I mean, and the league is going good, and like you say, when you've got out of 32 teams and there's maybe 24 of them right now still talking every day, looking at the standings, looking at that. That's what you want to. That's what you want to get. That we're getting great exposure everywhere, and and the league just keeps growing. The game of hockey just keeps growing.
Yeah, you mentioned looking at the standings right now, and when you take a look at the standings, we've got 6 Canadian teams in a playoff spot as of today. The last time that all of the Canadian teams made the playoffs was 1985-1986. The last time that 6 Canadian teams made the playoffs was 1996, and the last time a Canadian team won the Stanley Cup was 1993. So, of the 6 Canadian teams that are in a playoff spot as of today, who has the best chance to bring home Lord Stanley back north of the border, do you think?
Well, it's, it's if you just look at who's the best team right now from the Canadian teams, it's going to be Winnipeg.
Yep.
Are they the best team suited? If you look at down the list, I think they're probably maybe Toronto being number 2 as the teams most likely to get to at least the Stanley Cup Finals. So, I mean, the other teams are fighting to make the playoffs right now, so I don't think it's their year, but the fact that 6 Canadian teams are still in it, I remember when no Canadian teams were in it, so this is doing great for Canada.
I know we talked about the vibe in Montreal and what it's like right there, right now. What do you think the vibe in Toronto would be if the Leafs are in the Stanley Cup Final?
Oh, you have no idea. Like, I mean, they'd shut down the world. Like, that would be it right there. And I would be there. Like, I mean, I'd be going home because, I mean, they've been waiting since 1967 for this to happen.
Hey, just stay employed here. You get to pay, you get paid, and you get to cover the Stanley Cup Final.
Perfect. I'll take that any day of the week.
We look forward to that. Always look forward to working with you. Pleasure, my friend. We'll see you again tomorrow.
Yeah, I'm
Enjoy
looking
your day,
forward to
everybody.
it.